welcome to On Your Left Reviews.
And today, we will be reviewing the movie that kicks off Phase 1 of the MCU. Before we get into the content of our video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and share this video. Sharing this video is probably one of the best ways you can help our channel grow, as it gets the word out to a lot more people who might be interested in our content.
And please stay tuned till the end for our question of the day.
Thank you. So, we're reviewing Iron Man today.
Yes, we are.
We watched the movie about a week ago, went through our notes a little bit, organized our thoughts, and we're just going to have a nice discussion about things and hash things out.
That's the plan.
So, what was your overall impression about the film, Naomi?
Well, to be honest, wasn't blown away, but found it entertaining overall. Something I would definitely watch again. Something that was just a good way to relax on a Friday night. It wasn't fantastic, wasn't terrible.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like it's like a solid Phase 1 film. I feel like Phase 1 is not the best sample size of movies that we have. I feel like Phase 2 and 3 really pick that up.
Yeah.
But for Phase 1, it's a pretty good film.
Yeah.
But, overall in the MCU, it kind of falls behind a lot of those other top-tier movies like Civil War, Winter Soldier, and obviously your big team-up movies, Infinity War and Endgame.
And it's very true. When you start comparing it with all that we have out there now, it just kind of falls middle of the pack for me.
Exactly. But nonetheless, there are still some things that we really liked about the film.
For sure, yes. So would you like to run through some of your favorite things?
Sure. So what I have down is fantastic choice in music. I feel like this film has probably the best soundtrack out of any of the Marvel films, maybe up there with Thor Ragnarok and Spider-Man. I feel like it's probably top 3 in terms of soundtrack. I like the slow progression of a hero. A lot of times we're just kind of thrown right in and boom, he's a hero, like Captain America or Thor, though that kind of takes a weird twist where he is a superhero that gets drawn back.
Stripped
but
of his powers
I like Iron Man in that he starts out just a normal dude and then slow progression, starting to build up his suits and get a little bit more skill. And I kind of like that from a superhero movie where it's slow progression, get to know the character a little bit first, and then he starts to get more of his powers.
He's not quite a normal guy though, billionaire.
Yeah.
But I get your point. The progression of his capabilities with building the suits in a cave, and then growing from there, it is pretty spectacular.
It is. I like how the moment when he goes up, when he's flying in his Iron Man suit and it starts to freeze, I like how that pays off later in the film, where he realizes, hey, what's his name? Obadiah Stane, when he's in his suit, he's going up, he's like, Iron Man, I don't think he has freeze protection, I'm going to use it to my advantage. So he's taken a mistake, Iron Man, taken a mistake that he's had earlier in the film, and actually puts it to good use later. That's something I really liked.
Yeah.
I liked his machine assistant, on fire. That added some good levity to the film.
Oh, it was great.
I like that. I like his fall from glory, but rise to a different kind of stardom.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And obviously the last thing, gotta give a shout out to the I am Iron Man quote.
It's where it all begins.
It's not my favorite quote, we'll get into that later, but it is an honorable mention for me.
Yeah.
Anything else that you liked about the film that I haven't mentioned?
I'm going to say I love the start of Pepper and Tony's relationship. I love the slow build. So it's in a lot of these movies, you're introduced to the love interest, and by the end of the film, they're dating.
Yeah.
But in Iron Man, no. Right from the get-go, you can tell Pepper likes him, and it's really cute when you've watched the movies a couple times, and you really pick up on these subtle details. But they don't take it all the way. By the end of the film, he teases at the fact that, hey, we could be dating, but they're not really. They're, really still, secretary and her boss, whenever she is. But to then see their progression throughout the coming movies, they set it up really good in Iron Man, and I just love that.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. That's a really good point. So moving down into what was our favorite moment of the movie. For myself, that would have to be the completing of the Mark I suit in the cave. For me, that is the best moment out of the entire movie. We have Iron Man building his suit from quote, a bunch of scraps, right? And that whole scene kind of sets up, okay, now we've got Iron Man, let's see what he can do and go from here.
Yes.
And it's just also an awesome action sequence, very well shot. I love the different uses of his suit that he has, where he has the flamethrower, right, and then he can fly at the end. So it kind of shows off already some bit of range in this early prototype.
And actually, I'm going to piggyback on that. That was one of my favorite moments as well. And just the aesthetic shots that they get as he's building this suit, like just the dim lights and the kind of blue light from his computer screens, and like, oh, it is beautiful.
Yeah, it's very well shot. And speaking of well shot, I'm going to cover what the best action scene is. I have a little bit of a better taste than Naomi does for action. So for me, that would have to be when he finishes his Iron Man suit and he goes back to Galmira, where he frees the refugees from the 10-ring, what do you call them? Terrorists, 10-ring terrorists.
Yeah.
That for me is my favorite scene, right? We can see, again, amazing versatility from his suit. You know, where he dodges the tank missile, fires back, where he has the automated thing on his shoulder where he hits all the terrorists and the refugees are safe.
That one's cool.
And then the whole airplane scene with the military following that. That shows Iron Man's already better than the military at this point, right? So that already puts him, he's up there in terms of world powers, just one single guy, right? So that for me is my favorite fight scene. I don't, as much as I like the Mark I scene in the cave, I feel like this scene is just a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, well, his whole suit has been stepped up and
oh, exactly.
So.
Yeah, and we get those first like
10 notches.
Really cool shots.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's for me the best action scene. Yeah. So, favorite quote. Let's move on to that.
Favorite quote. Okay, this is probably not a popular favorite quote, but I don't know why. I love it so much. When he has, you know, starting to experiment and progress with his suits. He's back home. He's now got technology at his fingertips. He's working on it. And then he does that test run. And, well, a couple test runs. But this is the first, like, super successful test run. And he lands, and he just has that look on his face. And he goes, yeah, I can fly.
Huh.
I love that line. I don't know why.
Wasn't expecting that, but that's...
I know. It is not like a quote you would just randomly say, but I love it. Like, just... it captures his character so well, and just the like...
Exactly, his personality really comes through in that moment, for sure. For me, there was a bunch of great quotes in this movie.
There really is.
You know, one of them, I am Iron Man, great quote. Tony Stark built this in a cave with a bunch of scraps. I love that. But for me, it comes down to the doctor's quote, the doctor helping Tony in the cave. His quote, "Don't waste your life."
Yes, actually I was going to point that out too.
I feel like that is what sets Tony's entire journey throughout this movie and the MCU forward. So that acts as a catalyst for the rest of the movie and the entire MCU, which is very, very important because Iron Man is arguably the most central figure throughout phases 1, 2, and 3 of the Infinity Saga.
Yes.
So that definitely for me was my favorite quote.
Yes, it's a really influential quote, I would say, and like you pointed out, just totally sets Tony up for the growth that he's gonna have.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's
good. We have next going over the theme of the movie. What did you think?
Okay, so something it's gonna sound kind of awful, but if I was going to sum up the theme of actually all 3 Iron Man movies in one word, it would be self. His movies are about in a prideful way to an extent, but it's all about self-growth. We get to see how he learns to go from selfish to selfless ultimately in the end. So yeah, I would say summing it up, that's what I consider the theme of actually all of his movies. Did you have a different thought regarding theme?
Yeah, my theme was, it kind of piggybacks off of my favorite quote from this movie. It is making something of yourself and using your skills to make the world a better place.
See, that ties into self, though. That's his,
but I mean, I'm obviously
You're being more specific to this movie, which is
exactly,
good.
yeah. So, and that's what I feel like. Tony's like, my skill set is building weapons. How can I harness that and be able to make something that can actually make the world a better place?
Yeah.
He shows that in the action scene in Galmira, where he actually frees the refugees from the terrorists.
Yeah.
And there's all those moments, especially when you look at the rest of the MCU, that's what Tony's trying to do. He's trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And piggybacking off of that just a little bit more, the word peace was mentioned quite a lot in this film.
Absolutely, yes.
And I feel like that has a very good connection with Endgame, where Pepper is talking to Tony and is like, will you be ever able to rest? And then when he dies, she says, you can finally rest. I feel like that started in this movie where Tony's like, all I want is peace. My weapons aren't working.
Yeah.
Let's build the Iron Man suit. Try to achieve world peace. It doesn't work until Endgame.
Yeah, and actually that's such a good point because you could say he was restless
Yeah.
all the way up until Endgame, through Endgame, until his like final act, really. And you see that set up in this movie. He's restless. He needs to be doing something. He sees the Ron that has come from his work, and he wants to move on from that and make it better, make it right. And because, you know, he stumbles and he falls throughout the arc, you see him just being restless but pursuing that peace.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very interesting.
So in terms of story, what did you think? This is an area that I'm not as strong in, so can you provide a little bit of insight here?
I can try.
Yep.
So as far as structure goes, I mean, it hits the necessary beats. It gets, you know, first plot point down, gets midpoint, and third point.
Can I just pause you for a second, just for our audience? What is midpoint? What are plot points? What kind of is that? Because I have no idea.
Absolutely. So plot points are the major beats in a story, and what I mean by that is certain moments that have to happen in order for a movie or a novel to be cohesive, to make sense, for the character arc to make sense. So a good example, an example that I always use is Winter Soldier, but we will get to that when we get to that. So a first plot point is really what kickstarts the action, I would say, the real thread of the story. So I'm not not completely sure on this, but the first plot point, I believe, is when he's made the first Iron Man suit and he leaves.
Yeah.
So now you see he has the potential, and the biggest question is, okay, is he going to move on from this? Is he going to accept this call to be more than what he has been? So that's the first plot point. Midpoint, I would say, is, I believe it's at a gala or something, where he finds out that Obadiah was the one who kicked him out of the company.
Oh, okay, when they're having the cameras, they're taking pictures, and they're like this, and he's whispering.
Yeah. That's the midpoint, and a midpoint is also called a moment of truth because it reveals something for the character.
Oh, so that's like...
So that was, I would say, of all of this movie's beats, that one was the strongest.
Okay.
And then the third plot point is really what starts the climax.
Okay. And that would be what, exactly?
You know, I wasn't sure, which doesn't bode well for a story. If you're not certain what really kicks off the third plot point, then it leaves you with a shaky climax, which is exactly what I found in the story, actually.
Yeah,
the
we'll
climax
get to that
just,
later. It's lacking.
Yeah. So I would say this movie's strongest point was its midpoint. It wasn't the strongest midpoint ever, but it was super impactful for the character, which is really important.
Okay. So overall story was just
decent.
Okay, decent. Okay, we'll go with decent.
It was decent.
So now that we got, you know, the lovey-dovey, happy stuff about this movie out of the way, let's dive into our problems with it. So let's kick off. What was your least favorite part of this movie?
I thought the climax was just meh. And really, if your climax is meh, you just leave the audience feeling, I don't know, disappointed or just meh. You walk away and just feel like, you know, it was okay. But
He fought a guy.
when it has the potential to be more, and then it isn't, it's like, it's just disappointing, really. So that was my biggest problem, is the climax.
And I would totally agree with that. My biggest problem was the climax as well. Very anticlimactic. It didn't feel like there were any stakes at all.
Yeah, really.
Because even when Tony tells Pepper to blow up the arc reactor, I'm like, Tony knows he's going to survive this. He's too self-centered at this point to make a sacrifice.
True.
So I'm like, there's no way Tony's sacrificing himself to save everyone else from...
What's his face?
What's his face? Obadiah. Right? So if you can't remember the villain's name, that's not a good sign. And we'll get a lot more into that later with our video coming up on Friday. I'm going to go over why the Iron Man movie isn't that great, especially when compared to the rest of the MCU. We'll dive into that a little bit more. A lot of people have this movie in high esteem. we're going to kind of take the opposite route. So
Yeah.
you'll see that on Friday. Other problems that you had?
The comics was seriously the biggest one that came to
Okay.
mind. I felt like the whole Iron Man versus Iron Man and the fact that they were both
Yeah.
in these Iron Man suits, like it
Biggest
just
problem with MCU.
it fell flat for me. Like,
Yeah.
and it's true that like you see so many heroes and villains pitted against each other that are essentially the same, and
Ant-Man, Yellow Jacket,
I
Captain America,
see
Red
why
Skull.
they do it, because I mean you want powers to be at least equal, if not the
Yeah.
villain more, because otherwise it just feels lame when the hero wins. But when it's like essentially the same as the hero, it's just like you could have been a little more creative, honestly.
Yeah. For me, biggest problem, the villain. Didn't like him. I'll go into that more on Friday. My other big problem was Tony should have been caught by that camera in the cave. There's no way he should have been able to build that gigantic suit without anybody noticing. And my biggest pet peeve about that is the filmmakers tried to make it seem like, oh, Tony's being smart about this, right? He's covering things up, you know, he's doing it when guards aren't looking. And I'm like, that's just them trying to trick us into thinking Tony's being smart. And I'm like, I don't see it. If it happened in real life, no way with all those cameras around there he would have gotten away with building that thing.
Honestly, it downplays the intelligence of his captors when you do something like that.
Exactly. It makes the terrorists seem like dum-dums, right?
Yeah.
But they're
not.
They're not. They shouldn't be. In
Yeah.
the movie, they're portrayed as that, but they really shouldn't
You'd
be.
imagine real-life terrorists have a certain intelligence.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Exactly.
that's a very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not wrapping things up. Yeah, we got one more thing to cover. What was the point?
What was the point?
Yeah, for me, when I was sorry to interrupt.
No,
when I was
go ahead.
writing this down, I had no idea what the point was. And when that happens, again, doesn't bode well for the movie. And I was trying to think, is it just purely entertainment? Is it just purely trying to kickstart this universe? And I'm like, if it's that, that's not a really good point. Like, what are you as a viewer supposed to take away from this?
Right.
And I had a hard time pinpointing that.
Right. I think, part of the takeaway was purely entertainment. I mean, this was, as far as, like, the MCU, this is the first movie in it. And it's also arguably the movie that kickstarts the whole superhero craze that happened since then. I know there were superhero movies before it, but this is, like,
it was
iconic, right? And if that's your only point, to be iconic, that, like you said, there's not a takeaway for the audience other than nostalgia, which is okay. It's okay. And some people love it and love it for the nostalgia, and that's it, and that's fine.
Yeah, and again, that's a problem that I do have with this film, is the nostalgia factor of it, and we'll get into that more on Friday. I got a lot of points that we're going to cover then. So, overall rating, what would you give this movie out of a score of 10?
Out of a score of 10,
Yeah.
4.5? maybe?
4.5?
What, was that too low or too
That
high?
was way too low. Because I'm thinking of all the other movies that are worse than this. How low are you going to rank them?
Can I go in the negatives?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
4.5?
6.5.
6.5? Okay, that's better. Because
6.5.
I was thinking of like some of my worst movies, and I was going to give them around a 6.
It's so hard when there's so many movies, though. And I need to, like, write down what I'm going to rank the others so I can have a comparison going, because
I don't want to do that until the end. I want to just give them scores and
instinct ranking.
yeah, and let's just see what happens at the end. We're going to be doing a ranking video sometime next May, so stay tuned. My overall rating would be 7.3.
Okay.
And the reason being is because I don't think any of the MCU movies go below a 6 for me. I think they're all decent or above. There are no extremely bad movies. They're all decent. So that's why I go with the 7.3, because 6 is probably going to be my lowest. So I won't go as low as your 4.5. Or you give it a 6.
6.5.
Okay, 6.5.
But you don't think you'll ever dip below 6?
I don't think so.
I'd love to see if you did. That would be funny.
If I do, you can call me out on it. I don't think I'm going to dip below 6. I'm a lot higher on these movies than Naomi is. But we'll see. So, wrapping things up. Solid introduction to the MCU.
Absolutely.
Good film-ish. You know, but it's far and away not close at all to the top movies of the MCU.
Not
Would
even
you
close.
agree?
There's some movies that are easily gonna score a 9. Like, they're so good, and I can't wait to get to them.
Exactly. So, stay tuned for next Friday. Not next Friday. Friday. This video is coming out on Wednesday. On Friday, we're going to have that video where I'm going to be talking about more problems about Iron Man and why I do not think it is as good as other people kind of raise it up to be.
It's hilarious because you ranked it higher than I did.
I know, right? But we'll get into that. So, anyways, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share this video. Sharing this video is probably one of the best ways you can help us out because that gets the word out to other people who might be interested in this video.
Okay, question of the day. What is your ranking of this movie out of 10? Let us know down below.
Okay, see you guys.
See you.
Don't say it. Don't you say it left. Come on!